Okay, so it is a very sad day, day 94 of the Kerbal Space Program. Jebediah Kerman passed away in an unfortunate accident. Vessel complete. That's the vessel he died on. It's a very sad day for all of Kerbal kind. In his honor, we will continue our endeavors to reach upwards and onwards, to reach the heavens in memory of his great effort that he's already put in. Okay, to separate that engine. It's also an unmanned mission, because, well, we know what happened to the manned mission. Unmanned. In memory of Jeb. Okay, let's also attach some stabilizer wings to it, just for fun. In fact, we can probably put them there. That'll do nicely. 3 days, 3 hours, 53 minutes, 8 seconds build time. Let us save it and build it. So this should be now plenty to get us up to various speeds and whatever that we need to obtain. Let us do a staging check. Those engines will fire, that engine will be able to fire, then the parachute will be able to fire. Okay, let's get our mission briefing up. So we need to reach an altitude of 8,000. Let us turn on SAS and launch. Oh, those engines are mighty weak. Oh, we are losing control of the vessel. Okay, throttle down. Regain control. Regain control. Why have we suddenly lost control? Suddenly lost control. We're not at the right altitude to test anything. We are coming down. Come on, regain control, regain control, regain control. We're getting it, we're getting it, we're getting it, we're getting it. Okay, we have control. We are currently going downwards though. All that vertical velocity has done us no good. Maybe these engines can get us up to speed. I doubt it. After that failure, oh, we're losing control again. Okay, we're gonna need an SAS module on this guy. This mission, it should be an easy mission, but it's turning into one of the hardest things we've done. We keep getting failures. Okay, that's that gone. Let's turn off the SAS. Let it come down how it wants to. Try that engine. Boom. And deploy the parachutes. Okay. So that was pretty much another failure. If we attach an SAS module to it, we might be fine, hopefully. Okay, the jet engine unmanned Mark II on the launch pad. We're going to throttle up to full, we're going to turn SAS on, and we're going to ignite those engines. Let's get rid of that, let's get our information for our mission up. And get fare. Oh, fare is already up. Good old fare. We just need to get up to speed and we'll be good. As long as we don't go over the altitude, we should be fine though. That speed reached. Test that engine. Good. Okay. So now we need to reach a speed of 4,000 or 450 meters per second, but not increase our altitude too much. So let's burn ourselves over in this direction, see if we can increase that speed somewhat, as much as we can. There we go. Okay, our apoapsis is 22,000. That is too high for the apoapsis, but hopefully we'll get the speed for the parachutes. We probably won't, however. We shall see. We also need to keep in mind that we don't want to lose communication, which we should probably be fine for. Let's also increase our aerodynamic ability so we travel as fast as we can through the atmosphere. Oh, we have lost aerodynamic control. Okay, we are now tumbling. We have no connection to Kerbal Space Center. We may be too far away for a connection to register. That may be the issue right now. Where is... I want to test that. Out of range. Oh, we have run out of battery charge. That'll be why. Okay. Hopefully we don't reach speed. This thing is going to crash. Not much we can do about that now because, like I said, we've run out of battery. We have no communication with the vessel. It is just going to tumble. We can't even control SAS or anything right now. Like, we can't turn it off or anything. The vessel is in a spin and will crash into the grasslands apparently, but I don't think it will. Probably going to get into the ocean. Yeah, according to this, it'll be the ocean. At least we completed one mission. Let's just watch the destruction of this vessel. One kilometer. And impact. Wow, a part actually survived. That's incredibly surprising. Okay. Yep, let's go to the Space Center. We should probably have that information for us now. So we have some more science. Yes, we have 114 science now. Excellent. That's exactly what we needed. We just got the information before we lost contact with the vessel. Let's research ourselves some solar panels. Fantastic. Okay. So this now gives us access to various put engines for probes, an exo-Kerbal core drill, a rigid airship, and more procedural fairings. Okay. Also gives us access to advanced electronics, or advanced solar panels, and advanced exploration, things like ladders and bull parachutes and bull probe and bull shield and orbital telescopes and such. Okay, but at least we now have some solar panels. So I am going to design some communication satellites, and we shall try to put them into orbit. Welcome to some post-commentary here on Kerbal Space Program. So, we have the launches of our communication network. This launch, as you can see, was a complete success. Yeah, there was an aerodynamic failure on this launch, which resulted in the spacecraft not making it into orbit. I did try and bring it in for a soft landing after getting it orientated in the correct direction. Just kind of burn the engine to kill the throttle, but eventually we got too much atmospheric interaction and the entire spacecraft just tilts over, and then we just come down like a lawn dart, as a certain Farlander would say, and the spacecraft is lost to the ocean, unfortunately. A bit of a waste, but we are still learning. Splash, boom, etc. Launch of the second communication satellite went correctly, or went well, I guess. As you can see, the launch is pretty much successful. The boosters separate correctly and the second stage begins to fire. It's a little steep. There's not much of an aggressive gravity turn going on, which it's not too much of a problem, but it could have been a lot better if I did do a aggressive gravity turn. But the launch is successful. I mean, we do get up above the atmosphere at least, and there's not an aerodynamic failure like there was in the last mission. Just kind of burning the engine slightly, just kind of tweaking our orbit around. There is a lot of... I think I didn't really have much of an SAS module on this craft, so there's a lot of oscillation, especially in the upper atmosphere, where the... after not the fairings, the winglets have an effect, but before SAS can really kick in the vacuum of space. So there's a little bit of oscillation as we go up, but eventually that's under control, and we are in the atmosphere, or out of the atmosphere, I suppose. A little put engine on these communication satellites. It's just 3 satellite dishes which expand, as you can see. They're in their expanded state now. There is a long antenna, like a long range antenna, and a short dipole antenna, just for communication when it's within the atmosphere. Then once obviously it's out of the atmosphere, the stagings can, or the fairings can part, and the satellite can expand. There's also 3 solar panels on the front of this one, which ultimately is its undoing, as you can see now. Unfortunately, with the way we are trying to get into orbit, the sun is behind us, and all the solar panels are on the front of the spacecraft. There is some around the engine or around the fuel module you can kind of see there, possibly, unless YouTube ruins the darkness. But there are some solar panels around the spacecraft, but none of them really can get good exposure to the sun and still allow us to burn in the direction of our maneuver node. So ultimately, we don't really get it into the orbit we are after, because we have to kind of fight between having power, which obviously allows us to have a connection and allows us to have control of the spacecraft, and getting it in the direction we want it to go. So it's a case of get it into the light, charge up a little bit, then go, and then just kind of wait until we have power once again. It's a bit of a kerfuffle. We do get it into a stable orbit, but unfortunately, as you can see, I believe we're nearly out of fuel now. And once we're over the space center again and can burn the rest of our fuel, there's not enough to get us into a Kerbal-synchronous orbit or a geosynchronous orbit. Basically an orbit that is the same speed as the planet rotates. So we're over one spot in the sky all the time. Yeah, we do run out of fuel, but it's there. It's a communication satellite. Communication satellite 0 is in place and can do something at least. The communication satellites, sorry, they go into redesign around this point for the next 3. The launch is obviously a bit better as well. We start our gravity turn early, we get nice and high, we get our horizontal velocity up nice and early, so we can just swoop around the planet and get our orbit as round as possible. We're obviously trying to get into a very high orbit with a very limited delta V budget. So doing your gravity turn as early as possible, getting all that horizontal momentum to go up now, that's obviously a good thing. And then eventually the fairings, they come off. Look at that, so pretty. Such a nice rocket there. These satellites, I believe, have been fitted with an SAS module, or a better one, possibly. To be honest, it's been a while since I recorded this, so I'm not entirely sure. We're just tweaking the orbit now, getting it into where we want. You can see the orbital stats possibly on the right hand side there. Again, depending on YouTube processing. Kerbal synchronous orbit, I believe, is 2,868 kilometers, or 2,868,000 meters above the planet. So it's quite a high orbit, but we do get it up to that kind of distance. And then we need to wait for our signal to come through. This is the problem with this launch, is that it didn't quite have its signal coming through, but eventually we did get it. We got it through the communication satellite 0, which was the one we launched previously, and we managed to get a signal just to feed through. I forgot to open up the satellite before it lost communication. Luckily we managed to get it again, so it wasn't a complete write-off. Then it's just a case of slowly circularizing the orbit and making it all nice and pretty. Obviously the booster stage is going to be in orbit as well, because we're ditching it above the atmosphere, I believe. We might actually drop it. Oh, there you go. Yeah, we did drop it just before the atmosphere. About 400, that looks like. It's really small for me. But yes, and then the other redesign of this version of the communication satellite is the solar panels. The solar panels are a lot better situated. There's more of them, as you can kind of see them there. They have like a flower formation around the Staputnik command robotic command capsule. And again, just kind of tweaking our orbit, circularizing it, making it nice and pretty. Get it into a nice and stable orbit. With the new flower arrangement for the solar panels, we can get solar power no matter which direction we're facing, because they face both to the back of the spacecraft and to the front of the spacecraft, which is nice. Get a nice silhouette of the spacecraft right there. Just burning that orbit up, making it nice and circular. Plenty of fuel to spare, and we get into a nice geosynchronous orbit around Kerman. There's just endless hours of tweaking. I like to get my orbits as perfect as possible, so like everything is 2868. We do lose communication with the satellite slightly. I think I forgot to set up which direction the satellites point. The satellite dishes, they actually have to physically point at something. And then you can also see that red part on the spacecraft. That's our battery. Our battery failed on this spacecraft, so now we only have this tiny power we can get from the command module, the robotic command module, and the solar panels. Luckily the solar panels are enough that the satellite does have a connection, and everything is functional. It is a little bit of a problem when we go into the night side though. Now we get the launch of the next communication satellite. A nice steady launch. And again, it's pretty much the same deal, I just got better at it really. We go up until we're out of the thickest part of the atmosphere. We do have a slight tilt in our rocket for this one for some reason, but it's we correct for it. It's not a big deal. Then we go right over into the gravity turn as early as we dare, really, and get as much horizontal speed as we possibly can. A little bit harder to control this rocket for some reason, but we fight it all the way up and we get there. Fairings come off cleanly, and I believe I do actually manage to deploy the satellites this time, or the dishes. Hopefully, there we go. Dishes deployed and set them up. One pointing at mission control, one pointing at the other two command satellites, or the communication satellites, sorry. So we got as much control as we can. Then again, it's just a case of circularizing the orbit, making the orbit nice and pretty, which goes off without a hitch. Ditch the booster stage, that'll burn up into the atmosphere. Again, you can see the flower arrangement of the solar panels on this spacecraft. The green line is the actual communication line you can see on the map. The orange lines are the potential communications on the map. With dishes, you have to manually set them on each spacecraft. It can be a little annoying, but again, it's what they have to do at NASA and the like. But luckily, we have direct communication with the command center, with mission control, and we get our satellite nicely up into a geosynchronous orbit around Kerman. I believe this becomes our satellite that is directly above mission control. So mission control always has a satellite to look at, and that will communicate with the two satellites on the other side of the planet from mission control. I also limit the thrust slightly because the tweaking we have to do is so fine. Limit the thrust to as low as you can, and then you can have more fine control over your orbit. Nice little tip for you there. Then we get the wobbly launch of our last communication satellite. This will be communication satellite 3. The last for now. We might introduce some more later down the line. Again, nice clean launch, get out of the thicker part of the atmosphere, start the gravity turn. Nice and early. Get that horizontal speed up as high as you can. Fairings ditched. And set the satellites to point at where they need to point at. Little wobbly this rocket, for some reason. But again, we fight it all the way up. Just pulsing the engine, getting our apoapsis up to that 2868 number. Then swinging around and waiting for us to reach the apoapsis. You can see that we've kind of bunched up with our satellites. They're all kind of on one side of the planet. Ideally, they should be 60 degrees from each other and form a perfect triangle around the planet, an equilateral triangle. Later on, I do go back and tweak the orbits, slow some down, speed some up, and get them as roughly or as good as I can into that equilateral triangle situation. So this isn't their final configuration, but this is just their launches, which is the important part. Getting it into the equilateral triangle configuration is not too difficult. It's just rendezvousing, but missing, really. You have to try and align your orbit and have your orbit intersect at the right point, instead of, obviously in a rendezvous you want to intersect at the last point, at where the spacecraft is, but this you want to be 60 degrees separate. But anyway, that is the launches for the for the communication satellites of the Kerbal Space Program. As always, thank you guys very much for watching this episode of Kerbal Space Program, and I shall see you in the next episode.